Well, welcome to this is just going to be a brief discussion on 616, 617. A couple of things I want to talk to you about was our assignment, your assignment, that's due uh, by July 7th. And it's due in a couple of piece formats. So please read through the assignment. If you have any questions, forward them to the folder. I'm sure whatever questions you might have, somebody else might have. But broadly, what we're doing with this assignment is asking you to take an examination or select a particular disability policy. And remember our definitions of disability policy. And within that, we're asking you to analyze it utilizing the explanatory legitimacy framework, which we went over, I think, the second week of class. And if you have any questions about that or need some more information about that, post those questions as well. Again, I think that whatever questions you might have might be useful. In linking also explanatory legitimacy, we're asking you to also link ethical analysis. This is a complicated discussion. I know that, I realize that, but some of that information has gotten presented this week and maybe a little bit more clear next week when we actually have some articles that you're going to be reading that are the kind of application of ethical models to experiences of disability and or policies. Hopefully in the lecture that gets provided next week, which we'll post on Sunday, we'll provide a little bit more detail. But really what we're asking you to do for this assignment is select a particular disability exclusive or embedded policy. So you can use one of those. Please stay away from disability implicit policies with this. And I've provided a list of possible disability policies, either exclusive or embedded, that you could select from, or if there's another one that you want to do, feel free to use that. These really need to be United States policies for us to provide the kind of discussion. I'm asking you, in addition to once you select that particular disability policy, select critical readings from scholarly journals or books and government documents. You can use newspapers, magazines, and newsletters to help augment some of your conversation or your writing. And you can use web resources. Clearly this is a web-based class, so that's possible. But be careful or cautious just in terms of the nature of the web-based resources you utilize. Realize that anybody and everybody, including myself, can post whatever I want on a web-based site, and it may or may not be true. So you probably want to check a couple of different sources. Kind of a key to veracity might be websites that are done by the government or websites that are done by educational institutions. They at least have a little bit more peer review. That's just kind of a rule of thumb. The reading, as I mentioned, that for two bases is the Gilson DuPuy reading that we read June 8th to the 12th, and the reading that we're doing, the ethical models that we read this week, June 15th to the 19th. And your disability policy paper, I'm not going to go over it in detail, but under D identifies the areas that I would really like you to address in your paper. And remember that although I'm using paper here, clearly there's going to be one document that you're going to turn in, one copy of the document or one version of the document that's going to be in writing. So it's going to be a typical or traditional medium. The second piece that you'll need to do is to provide an oral or a video copy of that so that we can practice some of the accessibility that we've been either talking about or thinking about with this class. If for whatever reason you have difficulty with making that translation or having access to resources that allow you to translate your written document to an oral document, please contact me and we can work with you. I can work with you around access to resources here or where that might be possible. And I can talk to you also just in terms, you might also want to try YouTube. Trust me, it's an interesting experience. But so go through the four primary steps that we've identified in our assignment, steps A, B, C, and D. And again, don't hesitate to contact me. Don't hesitate to write questions about what you want for the questions you might have about this assignment. Also, please remember this assignment is not to exceed 5 pages of text. and that doesn't include references. I would suggest that you start early. Writing 5 pages of text is actually more difficult in this case than we oftentimes think about, because we're really asking you to do a concise and precise analysis, utilizing the readings and the framework that we presented in the class. It is Tuesday at just about 1 o'clock, and so I'm going to hold off a little bit until we get more responses from folks in the class. In terms of what I'll try and do is do a video response or discussion, since that seems to work relatively well, to some of the questions that have gotten raised during the readings this week. But I really would like you to struggle with, and remember, there's no fence sitting for the thinking points that are part of your response for this week, that are on slides 17 and 18 for this week. So your assignment for this week in terms of responding to the questions, I did not post the questions in terms of on the email, but presented them on our PowerPoint. That's also going to be the same for next week's PowerPoint. And we also will have a lecture as well. But in kind of brief, I think that the issue we're asking you to struggle with, or look at, examine, virtue-based ethics, issues of distributive justice. Somebody actually wrote, and Heather, thank you for your comment. Heather wrote kind of unclear in terms of why Woolf used animals. Well, that was just, I think, an exemplar for us to think about distributive justice. Bickenbach also raises a question about disability in terms of, boy, the multiple definitions, and why and Heather asked a question in terms of concerns her that disability has to be categorized in relation to policy. Well, I think that also is one of the fundamental concerns that I have as well, in terms of when you ultimately make policies for specific categories or categorize groups or individuals within that policy. One of the issues for me is, don't we all inadvertently in that process, while we're trying to secure and address issues of rights and resources, isn't there the potential for that ultimately to result in some kind of segregation, or somehow say, boy, we're going to cover you by policies, but only these special policies, and that somehow separates you from other folks. And indeed, it does create a hierarchy and contributes to separation of people. Those people, and in this case, we talked about and wrote about the issue of a hierarchy within disability, that some types of we would call disability pedigree end up being seen as more worthy than other kinds of, or other types of medical explanations for impairment. At any rate, enjoy the discussion, send questions. I will try my best to log on later this week with a video response, but also I will also try and do some written responses. Again, it's been a great privilege learning this technique, learning how to do this video. Enjoy the week. I look forward to hearing from you and chatting with you soon. Thank you very much.